was born in 66. This article was written in 1967. And I wanted to know, what was this article all about? Because all it says is, fence knocked down in legal dispute. And after asking around, I got an answer. Finally got an answer. And also this other article I came across, it talked about urban renewal. And the article was in celebration of a fence knocked down, that E.C. Keys was a pillar in the community and business person. Well, I guess his daughter erected a fence, and the fence blocked our family's ability to get to their home. And some people would refer to where we lived as down through the woods. There was over down in the woods, and then there was over in the field. And so we lived down through the woods because Kansas Avenue has since been rezoned. And so it was originally, because I still have my birth certificate that has the address of where our home was. And then Aunt Frances married a Jackson, which is what is in this article. And people were trying to figure out, well, who's this Jackson person? Well, he married into the family, and so his name is not, anywhere on the documentation because he moved in, he blended family type of thing. On my mother's side, it turns out that the way they ended up on Brookville Road, which is across the street, she lived on Brookville and Garfield, and that was Linden, and this was part of this side before it was rezoned was Linden, this side of Kansas Avenue was Linden. They migrated from Poosville, which Suzanne is my cousin. So yeah, they migrated down from Poosville down here. And so my father's family were already here. And so they met and married, and my mother moved into the family lot, and that's how I was born. My mother was Baptist. Pilgrim Church was the old Pilgrim Church before it was moved, was over on Brookville Road. And my grandmother lived on Garfield Avenue, and that's where my mother lived, and so with her mother. But my father lived here on Kansas Avenue, and so my father's side was Methodist. So I understand that they attended that church that's now Snyder's. So that was a church that the Linden-Lyttonsville people, we called it Linden. We never referred to this as Linden-Lyttonsville. We always referred to it as Linden. And the difference was that Linden apparently came after Lyttonsville because Samuel Lytton was the one that my great-great-great-grandparents purchased an acre of land from. So it was Samuel Lytton. So the name was, Lyttonsville was named after Samuel Lytton. Now, the interesting thing is that the Pilgrim Church, the old Pilgrim Church before it was moved over here, was in Linden, which is on the other side of Brookville Road and Garfield Avenue. So the history of that church got caught up in this urban renewal thing, which is what these apartments that were erected and how it towered over us. This was all part of urban renewal. There were a few families over there, all black, the urban renewal folks, decided to come through. And this happened all throughout the country. It wasn't just here. But ended up, sadly, selling the land. Again, people say, well, they didn't have to sell. Well, actually, they were put in a position. And I call that systemic racism. Like these policies that say, oh, well, why do you have to do this? Well, you kind of forced me into this position. I didn't have a choice. And so that's part of it. And
you didn't pave the roads. You didn't give us any street lights. You didn't give us, like the schools are so far away. The taxes are really high, and we're not getting any benefits out of them.
Speaking of school, we had a school. This was before integration. It was Linden School. The church had a school. And so that school, the church building was sold, and the really sad part is there was a cemetery there. You know what they did? They dug up the graves, and they sent the graves over to Washington National Cemetery on Route 1. And then they moved the church over here where it is now, and that's Lyttonsville. But the church was in Linden. It was Linden School. See, that's the difference. It was on the other side of the railroad track. And part of this here, where I was sharing where this picture is on the other side of the building. And one of these days we'll drive down there. But it is no longer there because now there's, they use it as a dumping ground. They put an incinerator there. Just all kinds of things to kind of move us out. My brother told me that my father's father, my grandfather, built our home. I don't have a picture of our home. There were 2 homes, 2 trailers on this 1 acre lot. And we lived in one of the houses. My grandfather built the house for us. I understand it was in the 50s. Yeah. I have older siblings up like in the mid-70s. So they remember a lot. And so, yeah, so in fact, 2 of my older siblings attended the Linden School. Yeah, I found that out. We weren't the only ones affected by urban renewal, right? I mean, families that were forced to move. People say, well, what about the other families that are still there? Well, apparently they chose the ones that they wanted. I guess, I don't know, for whatever reason. They didn't choose a lot of the other homes. So a lot of the other homes were able to rebuild. The story about this E.C. Key's daughter who erected this fence that didn't allow my family to get to their home, which was down through the woods, was that they said, here's the fence, here's the key to the fence. You must use the key in order to get to your home. So they hired a lawyer. He said, knock down that fence and don't take that key and knock down that fence. And that's what they were celebrating. Fence knocked down. I was like, wow. Because they had no right to do that. It was called easement. Basically, urban renewal was all about removing the black people from these communities that they founded after emancipation. That's really what this is all about. And for whatever reason, maybe I tend to believe that it's to ensure that we don't gain generational wealth, that we didn't, that we stayed kind of oppressed. Because an acre lot could build what? How many? A couple of houses, a couple of towns. It could build a lot for. That's a whole acre, whole family. I could still be there right today, but I'm not because we were forced to move, given pennies on the dollar for the land. There's a family member, a family friend who's still living, who told me that she used to go to the house. She remembers. She remembers she remembers all of this. I'm like, what? This same family friend, she told me that her family actually had a log cabin over here. And I also heard that the Quakers kind of got together and says, oh, we're going to help. Well, the way I see that, that's nice. But I still see that as we didn't need to be put in that position in order for you to build these apartments. We didn't ask for these apartments. We already had land. What do we need apartments? We already had land, right? What we needed is to have funds to build up the homes that we had. That's we didn't need these apartments.
You need running water.
We needed running water, lights. They withheld that and allowed everything to become dilapidated. Now, I found out from another family friend, and I asked her, I said, well, I understand. I asked her, I said, I understand you guys used to live on Brookfield Road. She said, yeah. I said, well, what happened? And she told me, well, she said they were approached. She said, well, if we buy your house, we give you the money, you go and build your house over there, which is current this is what they call Linden-Lyttonsville. Yeah, current. Some of the people like Stewart Lane and Stewart, they were descendants. The museum has pictures of the family, a lot of the families. We're still going to be part of the museum to finalize, not well, as much as we can. It's going to continue to grow, but the founding families, a lot of the pictures are kind of being collected now, and identifying the people to say who were these people, and also identifying the roads that they lived on. And so that's a project that the Linden descendants are working on, that getting that information together. And I'm helping with that, talking to the people before they pass on. But what I am trying to convey is that we were community. We just did not get the support for the infrastructure. And when the urban renewal came through, it was almost as if it was done purposely. And I call that systemic, because it had to be systemically done in order to get us to where we were, in order to put us in these type of positions. I look at different areas around this community and how close our proximity is to Washington, D.C. And now they're working on the Purple Line. And how close that was to where we lived, where I was born, how close that was. And I thought they probably have been, I know on paper it says that, that this, and I don't know the year, but apparently it was long after so-called urban renewal, but, we ended up moving, and so that's what happened. Because I was thinking about different areas and why some people weren't, some people still live in their homes, and I said, why is it that, they didn't bother them, right? They only bother certain groups, not groups, but I guess it's with any developer. If it's an area that would make them the most money, or if it's an area that could possibly have made these black folk more wealth, well, let's take that, let's stop that right now, kind of thing. Because if you look at Brookfield Road, it's all industrial. There's nothing over there. Why didn't they just leave us alone? My grandmother, why didn't they leave Pilgrim Church alone? Like why did they feel the need to dig up the grave, send them off, and move Pilgrim across the street? What was that about? Like, why? Right? And also, some people who lived on some of these homes now, yes, some people say, well, that's the original house. Well, not really, because original homes were log cabins. Those aren't original homes. Were built in the 50s. Those are not original homes. I do know that the family member who's now 83, she told me that her family, and she pointed to it, she said the log cabin was right there, somewhere around here. But this was plantation. So Montgomery County is all plantation. So we had, plantations. And so they were slaves. And so, yeah.